Get him out of that seat. Mr. Halston should not have to wait for someone like him. Claire Whitmore's voice cut across the VIP cabin with the cold certainty of a door being locked. Conversation stopped. Coffee cups hovered above polished tables. Every face turned toward seat 1A, where Malcolm Bennett sat in a charcoal jacket, dark jeans, and plain leather shoes, looking less like a man caught in the wrong place than someone quietly measuring the room. Behind Claire stood Richard Halston, a silver-haired white passenger in a tailored navy suit, one hand resting on the handle of his carry-on, his expression already shaped by expectation. He had not shown a ticket. He had not asked a question. He simply waited for Malcolm to disappear. "This is my assigned seat," Malcolm said, holding up his digital boarding pass. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but Claire barely glanced at the screen. VIP reservations can be corrected at staff discretion. She turned toward Ryan Cole, the onboard security supervisor. "Remove his luggage." Ryan opened the overhead compartment, took down Malcolm's small black suitcase, and placed it in the aisle with deliberate impatience. The wheels struck the carpet with a dull thump that seemed louder than it should have. Malcolm looked at the suitcase, then at Ryan. "You checked his reservation?" Ryan's mouth tightened. "You need to cooperate, sir." "I am cooperating. I am asking whether you verified the facts." Claire stepped closer, blocking the aisle as though authority required taking up more space. "Mr. Halston is a Platinum Legacy member. He has business to conduct, and this seat is better suited to his needs." Malcolm's gaze shifted to Richard. "And my needs?" Richard gave a small shrug. "Surely there is another seat available." The words were polite. The assumption beneath them was not. A young attendant named Emily Torres stood near the service station, watching the exchange with growing unease. She had scanned Malcolm's ticket less than 10 minutes earlier. Green confirmation. Presidential VIP access. No warning. No error. Yet Claire now reached for the printed seat card resting beside Malcolm's table. "This is no longer valid," she said. With one quick motion, she tore it down the center and placed the pieces on the table like a final ruling. A murmur moved through the cabin. Malcolm did not rise. He did not raise his voice. He looked down at the two halves of the card marked 1A, then slowly lifted his eyes back to Claire. "You just canceled a verified reservation without checking the passenger record." "I corrected a mistake," she replied. "No," Malcolm said, his tone sharpening by a single degree. "You created one." Claire folded her arms. "You are not a VIP passenger anymore." Richard stepped forward, ready to claim the seat. Malcolm remained still, one hand resting beside the torn card, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at the number 1A as if it carried a history no one else in the cabin could see. "You have no idea why this seat was left in my name," he said. For the first time, Claire hesitated, but only for a breath. Then she pointed toward the rear of the train. "Stand up, sir." Malcolm looked around the cabin, taking in the silence, the lowered eyes, the people waiting to see whether dignity could be reassigned as easily as a seat. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet enough to make everyone listen. "Before I move, I want each of you to remember exactly what you chose to do while you believed I had no power." Malcolm did not stand. The train moved beneath him with a low, steady rhythm, carrying the cabin north through the fading light, while Claire waited for obedience she had not earned. Richard Halston glanced at his watch, irritated by the delay, but Malcolm's attention remained on seat 1A. The number had never been chosen for luxury. It had been preserved for memory. 28 years earlier, his mother, Evelyn Bennett, had worked overnight cleaning shifts for the same railroad when it still operated under another name. One winter morning, after 12 hours on her feet, she had boarded a nearly empty train outside Baltimore with a fever and a paper bag containing Malcolm's college application forms. Her employee pass allowed her only in the service car. A passenger noticed her trembling and offered her the vacant front seat. It was seat 1A. For 40 minutes, Evelyn rested there while the train crossed into Washington, holding those applications against her chest as if they contained the future itself. Years later, when Malcolm acquired Crown Meridian Rail, he found the old route records in an archive. He kept the seat number permanently registered under the Bennett family account, not as a monument to wealth, but as a reminder that dignity had once reached his mother through the kindness of a stranger when company policy had offered her none. Claire saw only a black man in plain clothes occupying a place she believed should look more expensive. She did not see Evelyn's worn gray uniform. She did not see the tuition checks paid from double shifts. She did not see the first transportation company Malcolm built with 3 leased buses and a borrowed office. She saw Richard's tailored suit and decided the seat made more sense beneath him. "You are delaying departure procedures," Claire said. Malcolm looked toward the window. The train had already left the station 7 minutes earlier. "The train is moving," he replied. A few passengers turned away to hide their reactions. Richard cleared his throat. "I have a board call in 15 minutes. I was told this cabin would provide privacy." "Then perhaps the company should have assigned you an available seat," Malcolm said. Richard's expression cooled. "Do you know who I am?" Malcolm met his eyes. "Do you?" Emily remained beside the service station, her fingers tightening around the tablet she carried. She remembered the green confirmation clearly. Malcolm Bennett. Seat 1A. Presidential access. The highest authorization code in the system. Yet Claire was behaving as though the record had never existed. Malcolm noticed Emily watching. He did not signal to her. He did not need rescue. He needed the truth to survive the pressure being placed on it. Claire reached for her own tablet and opened the passenger list. "There is no protected assignment on this seat," she announced. Malcolm's eyes lowered to the screen. His name was still visible for half a second before Claire turned the tablet away. "Interesting," he said. "What is?" "You have not found an error yet, but you have already decided who deserves the correction." Claire's jaw tightened. "This is about service priority." Malcolm looked again at the torn seat card on the table. "No, this is about the kind of person you believe priority should resemble." The cabin fell quiet once more, and for the first time, Richard did not step forward. Malcolm placed the two halves of the card side by side, aligning the number perfectly. "Seat 1A was never sold," he said. "It was reserved." Claire gave a dismissive smile. "For whom?" Malcolm looked toward the darkening window, where his reflection sat calmly beneath the cabin lights. "For someone your company once believed belonged in the back." Claire's smile vanished. She turned the tablet toward herself and began tapping through the passenger system with quick, controlled movements, but the tension in her hands betrayed her. "There has been a booking irregularity," she announced. "Seat 1A was assigned in error." Malcolm watched the screen reflected faintly in the window beside him. His name remained visible, followed by the words presidential access and executive override. Claire opened the reservation controls, selected his profile, and moved the assignment to Richard Halston. The change took less than 5 seconds. The injustice had taken even less. "There," she said. "The record now reflects the correct passenger." Malcolm looked at her. "Did you just alter the passenger list after confirming my reservation?" Claire locked the tablet and held it against her chest. "I corrected a system mistake. You did not investigate a mistake." His voice remained calm. "You manufactured one." Richard stepped around Malcolm's suitcase and settled his hand on the back of seat 1A as though possession had already transferred. "This has gone on long enough," he said. "I have been a Crown Meridian member for 18 years. Malcolm glanced at him. "Membership does not turn another passenger's seat into your property." Richard gave a humorless laugh. "This is not about property. It is about accommodating the right client." The words moved through the cabin like smoke. No one could pretend not to understand them. Emily lowered her eyes to her service tablet and reopened the boarding log. The original scan remained there. Malcolm Bennett. Valid entry. Seat 1A. No reassignment request. No system warning. She looked toward Claire, then toward Ryan, hoping one of them would choose the truth before the situation hardened around the lie. Ryan stepped closer to Malcolm. "You need to gather your belongings and move to the standard cabin." "On whose authority?" Malcolm asked. "Onboard security. Security enforces policy. It does not rewrite reservations." Ryan's face tightened. "Do not make this more difficult." Malcolm looked down the aisle toward the rear cars, where dozens of passengers sat unaware that one man's verified place had just been erased to protect another man's comfort. "It became difficult when facts stopped matching," he said. Claire turned to the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the disruption. We are resolving an unauthorized seating issue." Emily looked up sharply. Unauthorized. The word had been chosen carefully. It transformed Malcolm from a paying passenger into a problem without requiring proof. Malcolm heard it too. "Say my name," he said. Claire stared at him. "Excuse me. You have my identification. You have my reservation. You have the original scan. Say my name before you call me unauthorized." The cabin fell silent. Claire refused. Instead, she pointed toward the aisle. Move now, or we will document you as non-compliant. Malcolm leaned back slightly, still seated beneath the soft overhead light. You erased my name, gave my seat to a white passenger, and now you are preparing a report that makes me responsible for resisting it. Claire's expression hardened. I am restoring order. Malcolm looked at the torn card aligned on the table. Order built on a lie is only discrimination with paperwork. Near the service station, Emily made her decision. She opened the backup log and captured the original record before Claire could erase that too. Emily's thumb hovered over the captured record for 1 second before she sent it to the internal ethics portal. The confirmation appeared almost instantly. Report received. Executive review pending. She drew a slow breath and stepped away from the service station. Her tablet is showing the edited version, Emily said, her voice steady enough to reach every seat. The original boarding log still lists Mr. Bennett in seat 1A. Claire turned so quickly that the tablet nearly slipped from her hands. You were told to return to service. I scanned his ticket myself, Emily continued. It was valid. Presidential access. No error message. Richard's hand left the back of the seat. Ryan looked toward Claire, waiting for an explanation she could shape into authority. Claire found one immediately. Trainees do not interpret executive codes. You saw a temporary assignment before the system corrected itself. Emily shook her head. The system did not correct it. You changed it manually. The sentence landed without volume, but it altered the entire cabin. A woman across the aisle lowered her coffee and looked directly at Claire. A businessman near the window closed his laptop. Until that moment, most passengers had treated the confrontation as an inconvenience. Now they understood they were watching evidence disappear in real time. Claire stepped closer to Emily. Be very careful about accusing a supervisor while you are still under probation. Emily's face tightened, but she did not retreat. I am describing what the log shows. Malcolm remained seated, watching her with quiet attention. He knew what courage looked like when it first entered a room. It rarely arrived without fear. It arrived despite it. Show us, Richard said, though his tone carried more concern for himself than for the truth. Emily turned her tablet outward. Beneath it, a second entry showed the reassignment to Richard Halston. The change was marked with Claire Whitmore's employee credentials. A low murmur spread through the cabin. Claire reached for the tablet. Emily pulled it back against her uniform. That information is restricted. Then why did you alter it? Malcolm asked. Claire looked at him, anger replacing the confidence she had worn only minutes earlier. You are creating confusion among other passengers. No, Malcolm said. Your record created clarity. Ryan moved between Emily and the aisle. Return to your station before this becomes a disciplinary issue. Emily looked at him. It became a disciplinary issue when a valid passenger was removed from the system. Claire's voice sharpened. You have no authority here. Emily glanced toward Malcolm, then at the passengers now watching her. Maybe not, but I have the original record. Malcolm's expression softened for the first time. And that is enough. Claire opened her mouth to respond, but a quiet tone sounded from Emily's tablet. The ethics report had been escalated. On the moving train, Malcolm's device vibrated once inside his jacket. He did not answer. Not yet. He looked at Claire and said, You should have listened when she gave you the chance. Claire heard the warning in Malcolm's voice, but pride had already carried her too far to turn back. Ryan, remove him from the seat, she ordered. Ryan stepped closer, his shadow falling across the torn card on the table. Sir, this is your final instruction. Stand up and move to the standard cabin. Malcolm looked at him without fear. You have seen the record. I follow the supervisor's direction. Even when the direction is based on a lie? Ryan did not answer. He placed one hand on Malcolm's shoulder, not with force, but with the casual certainty of someone who believed a uniform made every decision lawful. The cabin seemed to narrow around that single point of contact. Malcolm lowered his eyes to the hand. For one suspended moment, the polished tables, soft lighting, and passing countryside disappeared. He was 19 again, standing beside his mother near a private employee lounge at Union Station. Evelyn Bennett had finished an overnight shift. Her gray uniform smelled faintly of cleaning solution, and her hands were dry from hours of work. She had entered the lounge only to sit for 5 minutes before the bus ride home. A white supervisor had stopped her at the door. This room is for professional staff, he had said, although her employee badge hung plainly from her collar. Evelyn had explained that she worked there. He had looked at her uniform and replied that cleaning personnel used the service area. Malcolm remembered the way she had nodded, not because the man was right, but because she could not risk losing the job that paid his tuition deposit. She had walked away with her back straight, carrying humiliation as quietly as she carried everything else. That silence had followed Malcolm for 25 years. It had helped him build companies, buy rail lines, and rewrite policies. Yet here it was again, wearing a different uniform and making the same assumption. Malcolm returned to the present and lifted his gaze to Ryan. "Remove your hand." His voice was quiet, but every passenger heard it. Ryan hesitated. Claire did not. "Do not let him intimidate you." Emily stepped into the aisle. "His ticket was valid. You cannot treat him like a security threat because he refuses to surrender a seat that belongs to him." Claire turned on her. "Go back to your station." No, the word surprised even Emily. But once spoken, it gave her something solid to stand on. "I will testify to what I saw. The reservation was valid, and you changed it after Mr. Halston arrived." Richard looked toward the window, suddenly unwilling to meet anyone's eyes. Claire's face hardened. "Then you are finished here." Emily blinked. "What? Your probation is terminated, effective immediately. Hand Ryan your employee badge." The cabin reacted with a wave of disbelief. A woman near the aisle whispered that Claire was punishing the only person who had told the truth. Emily's hand moved toward the badge clipped to her uniform, but Malcolm spoke before she could remove it. "Keep it on." Claire stared at him. "You do not have the authority to make that decision." Malcolm slowly stood, causing Ryan's hand to fall away. He was calm, composed, and now level with both of them. "You are right about one thing," he said. "A decision is about to be made." His phone vibrated again inside his jacket. This time he took it out. Dana Brooks's name glowed across the screen. Malcolm answered and held the phone to his ear. "Dana." Her voice was clear and immediate. "I have the original manifest, the altered record, and Emily Torres's report. The executive system is ready." Malcolm looked first at Emily, then at Claire. "Good," he said. "Lock every change from this moment forward." Claire's confidence flickered. Richard stepped back from seat 1A. Ryan glanced toward the cabin door as though the nearest exit had suddenly become important. Malcolm ended the call and placed the phone on the table beside the torn card. "You fired the witness," he said. "That was your last mistake." For 3 seconds, no one moved. Claire stood beside seat 1A with her arms folded, still trying to wear authority like armor, while Malcolm's final words settled over the cabin. She had fired the witness. She had changed the record. She had called a verified passenger unauthorized. Yet she still believed the room belonged to her. "Ryan," she said, forcing steadiness into her voice, "escort Mr. Bennett to the connection area until we reach the next station." Malcolm picked up his phone and the 2 torn pieces of the seat card. Then he stepped into the aisle without resistance. Claire mistook the movement for surrender. A faint smile returned to her face. Richard released a relieved breath and lowered himself into seat 1A as though the matter had finally been resolved. "Thank you," he said. "Some people do not understand how professional travel works." Malcolm paused beside him. "Enjoy the seat while you still believe it was given to you." Richard looked up, but Malcolm had already continued toward the glass door separating the VIP cabin from the connection passage. Ryan followed close behind, while Emily remained near the service station with her employee badge still attached to her uniform. Claire pointed toward it. "I told you to remove that." Emily held her ground. "Mr. Bennett told me to keep it on." Claire laughed once. "He is not your employer any more than he is a presidential passenger." Malcolm stopped at the doorway and looked back. "Dana, initiate executive control." His phone remained connected, and Dana Brooks answered through the speaker. "Executive control confirmed. Passenger records are locked. Employee permissions are suspended pending review. Cabin 7 is secured for internal investigation." Claire's tablet sounded a sharp alert. She looked down and tapped the screen, but every administrative option had turned gray. Ryan checked his handheld device. His security access now displayed a temporary suspension notice. "What did you do?" Claire asked. Malcolm did not answer her. He spoke into the phone instead. "Do not stop the train. Lock the cabin doors at the next internal checkpoint and connect the board." "Already underway," Dana replied. The glass door behind Malcolm slid shut with a soft mechanical click. No alarm sounded. No one was endangered. Yet the quiet lock changed the room completely. Claire hurried to the control panel and entered her code. Access denied. She tried again. Access denied. Richard remained seated, but his confidence had begun to drain from his face. Claire, what is happening? She ignored him and pressed the service call button. Nothing happened. Malcolm stood on the other side of the glass in the connection passage, visible to everyone, calm beneath the white overhead lights. Claire had placed him there to make him look removed. Instead, the glass framed him like a man waiting for the truth to arrive. She turned toward the passengers. This is a temporary technical issue. Please remain seated. Emily looked at the frozen tablet in Claire's hands. The system did not fail, she said. Someone above you took control. Claire spun toward Malcolm. Who are you? Before he could answer, every entertainment screen in the VIP cabin went dark. Richard slowly set down his champagne. The Crown Meridian logo appeared across each display, followed by a message in clean white letters. Emergency Executive Session. Claire stared at the screens as if they had spoken her name. Malcolm lifted his phone again. Dana, bring them in. A live video connection opened. At the center of the largest screen sat the chairman of Crown Meridian Rail, flanked by 3 board members and the company's chief legal officer. The chairman looked directly through the camera. Mr. Bennett, he said, we have reviewed the original manifest and the unauthorized seat transfer. The board is ready when you are. Richard rose from seat 1A so quickly that his coffee trembled on the table. Claire's face lost all color. Ryan lowered his device. Malcolm remained behind the glass for one final second, allowing them to feel the distance they had created. Then the door unlocked for him alone. He stepped back into the cabin and looked at Claire. You thought moving me out of the room gave you control, he said. All it did was give my board enough time to watch you lose it. Claire's lips parted, but no answer came. The board members remained on the screens, their faces still and attentive, while the train continued north at full speed. Malcolm walked back toward seat 1A and stopped beside the table where the torn card rested in 2 perfect halves. Richard stood near the aisle now, no longer touching the seat he had accepted so easily. Mr. Bennett, the chairman said, the executive record confirms that seat 1A was assigned to you under permanent owner authorization. A quiet shock moved through the cabin. Claire looked from the screen to Malcolm as if the man in front of her had changed, though he had not changed at all. Only her understanding had. Owner authorization? She whispered. Malcolm turned toward her. My name is Malcolm Bennett. I am the Chief Executive Officer and controlling shareholder of Crown Meridian Rail. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the soft movement of the train seemed to recede beneath the weight of the revelation. Ryan lowered his eyes. Emily stood frozen beside the service station, one hand still near the employee badge Claire had ordered her to surrender. Richard stared at Malcolm with sudden recognition. We met in Boston, he said quietly, at the Transportation Investment Forum. Malcolm nodded once. You recognized the suit. You did not recognize the man. Richard's face tightened. I did not know this was your seat. You knew it was not yours. Malcolm's voice remained calm. That should have been enough. Claire stepped forward, her confidence now replaced by urgency. Mr. Bennett, this was a misunderstanding. The reservation system appeared inconsistent, and I was trying to protect a priority client. Malcolm looked toward the screens. Dana, display the record. The largest screen changed. The original passenger manifest appeared first, showing Malcolm Bennett assigned to seat 1A with presidential access and executive override. Then came the second record, created minutes later under Claire Whitmore's employee credentials, transferring the seat to Richard Halston. Every timestamp was visible. Every action had a name attached to it. Claire stared at the evidence. I believe the first entry was an error. Emily told you it was valid, Malcolm said. You threatened her. He pointed toward the next line in the report. You saw the original authorization before you removed my name. Claire shook her head. I was under pressure to resolve the situation quickly. A misunderstanding ends when the truth is shown, Malcolm replied. You saw the truth and deleted it. The words settled over the cabin like a final judgment. Ryan attempted to speak. Sir, I was following the supervisor's instruction. Malcolm turned toward him. You saw the record. You heard the witness. You still treated my presence as a security problem. Ryan looked down at his suspended device. I made the wrong call. No, Malcolm said. You made several choices. The call was only the last one. Richard stepped away from the seat. I will move to another cabin. There is no need to make this larger than it is. Malcolm faced him. It became larger when you accepted something taken from another passenger because you believed your status mattered more than his rights. Richard's expression hardened slightly. You were making this about race. You made it about race when you looked at me and decided I was the person who should move. Emily lowered her gaze, absorbing every word. Malcolm then turned back to Claire. The most serious problem is not that you failed to recognize your chief executive officer. He placed the torn pieces of the card together again. The problem is that you believed a man without my title deserved this treatment. No one in the cabin looked away now. The board remained silent, waiting for Malcolm's decision. He looked toward Dana's image on the screen. Begin the second review. Claire's face changed. Second review? Dana answered before Malcolm could. Yes. This incident was not the beginning of the investigation. It was the confirmation. Dana's image remained steady on the screen as a second file opened beside the passenger manifest. Claire stared at the list of dates, complaint numbers, and route assignments, each one carrying the same quiet pattern. Over the past 6 weeks, Dana said, the ethics office received 11 complaints involving passengers of color in premium cabins. 7 named Claire Whitmore. 4 named Ryan Cole. In every case, the passenger was described as disruptive, improperly dressed, or unable to verify a valid reservation. Claire shook her head. Those reports were reviewed. None were proven. Dana changed the display. Recorded service logs appeared one after another. A black attorney in Philadelphia had been moved from a private compartment after a white passenger complained that he looked suspicious. A black physician traveling from Baltimore had been asked for additional identification 3 times while other passengers were waved through. A family from Atlanta had lost a reserved table because Claire said a platinum member required more space. Each complaint had been closed under the same phrase, service discretion. Malcolm read the words without expression. You did not have one bad moment, he said. You built a habit and called it policy. Claire looked toward the board. I followed company standards. The chief legal officer answered her. No company standard authorized you to alter records, ignore verified credentials, or apply different requirements based on appearance. Ryan stepped forward. I was not involved in every complaint. Dana opened another file. Security reports carrying Ryan's name filled the screen. In each one, he had accepted the supervisor's version without reviewing the passenger record. You were involved whenever your authority was needed to make the bias look official, Malcolm said. Ryan's face fell. Richard cleared his throat. This internal matter has nothing to do with me. Dana brought up a series of messages between Richard and Crown Meridian's VIP service office. In one, he demanded that staff keep certain passengers away from his preferred cabin. In another, he threatened to withdraw sponsorship from a corporate event if the company could not maintain what he called the proper atmosphere. Richard's confidence cracked. That language is being taken out of context. Malcolm looked at him. Context did not make you accept my seat. Comfort did. Richard's voice rose. You cannot end a major partnership over one reservation. Malcolm remained still. You were comfortable when the cost belonged to someone else. He turned toward the board. Terminate Mr. Halston's partnership agreement and revoke his legacy status. The chairman nodded. Effective immediately. Richard gripped the edge of the table. You cannot do this to me. Malcolm met his eyes. You believed it could be done to me. Then Malcolm faced Claire and Ryan. Your employment is terminated, effective now. Your system access will remain disabled. At the next station, regional operations staff will collect your credentials and escort you from service areas. Claire's voice weakened. You are firing us in front of passengers. You humiliated a passenger in front of them, Malcolm said. Accountability should not require privacy when discrimination did not. He turned to Emily. Your termination was unauthorized and is void. Your probation record will be cleared. Emily looked at the board, then at Malcolm. Thank you, sir. Malcolm shook his head. Do not thank me for restoring what should never have been taken. The train began to slow as it approached the next station. Outside the windows, platform lights appeared in the dusk. Claire looked around the cabin for support, but the room she had controlled minutes earlier offered none. The doors unlocked with a soft tone. 2 regional managers waited beyond the glass. Malcolm stepped aside and gestured toward the exit. You told me to leave because you thought I did not belong, he said. Now you are leaving because your choices proved you no longer do. Claire stepped onto the platform first, her employee badge already inactive, followed by Ryan with his security device dark in his hand. Neither of them looked back. Richard was directed toward the standard cabin, where an open seat waited without privacy, priority service, or the privilege he had assumed would always bend toward him. The regional managers remained at the doorway until the train was ready to depart again. Then the doors closed, the platform began to slide away, and the VIP cabin settled into a silence that felt different from the one before. This silence did not protect wrongdoing. It made room for truth. Malcolm stood beside seat 1A, but he did not sit. Emily approached carefully, still wearing the badge Claire had tried to take from her. "The seat is yours, sir," she said. Malcolm looked down at the two torn halves of the card. It was never only mine. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and removed a small photograph, its edges softened by years of handling. Evelyn Bennett stood beside an old Crown Meridian train in a gray cleaning uniform, one hand resting on a service card, her smile tired but unbroken. Malcolm placed the photograph on the table beside the repaired number. "My mother cleaned these cars before anyone in this cabin knew my name," he said. "She was once told that comfort belonged to people above her position. Years later, a stranger gave her this seat for 40 minutes when company policy would not give her 5. Emily looked at the photograph. "That is why you kept the number." Malcolm nodded. "I kept it to remember what kindness did before power could." He turned toward the passengers, all of whom were now listening without distraction. Today was not about whether a chief executive officer deserved a VIP seat. Any company can learn to respect a title after it is revealed. The real test is whether it respects a person before knowing what that person can do in return. No one applauded at first. The words were too close to what they had witnessed. Malcolm looked toward Emily. "You did not defend me because I owned the railroad. You defended a passenger because the record was clear and the treatment was wrong." Emily lowered her eyes. "I almost stayed quiet." "Courage is not the absence of hesitation," Malcolm said. "It is the decision that truth matters more than comfort." He offered her seat 1A. Emily shook her head. "That seat belongs to your mother." Malcolm looked again at Evelyn's photograph and allowed a small smile. "Then it will remain empty for the rest of this trip." He placed the two halves of the card beneath the photograph and returned to an open seat across the aisle. No one objected. No one asked whether an empty seat was an efficient use of premium space. They understood that it now carried more weight than any passenger could. As the train gathered speed and the station lights faded behind them, Malcolm spoke one final time. They believed power meant deciding who could be removed. Real power is building a system where no one has to prove that the color of their skin does not cancel their right to belong. Outside, the train entered a long tunnel. The windows turned black, reflecting the cabin back upon itself. In the center of that reflection, seat 1A remained empty, holding a photograph, a torn card, and a standard that could no longer be ignored.